Hi everyone, welcome back to BoneDry Bonsai. I'm Joel. These are my other two what I consider to be awesome bonsai trees for beginners. Maple, collected out of a flower bed. Oak, purchased from a nursery. Up until this point, 2+ years, these trees have just kind of been existing with me and growing. A little bit of pruning here and there. Today I applied the first wire, started a styling, just trying to apply some things that I've learned over the last couple of years, and that's what I'm trying to convey to you is if you're hesitant, don't be. I've shown 3 different methods of getting a tree: online purchase, collection, nursery material, get them into a pot, and in the process build your knowledge. So I'll show you in today's video how I made the decisions that I made and why I did what I did, and hopefully I conveyed what I was trying to accomplish, and I hope this is encouraging and helpful. Check it out. Okay, this is my deciduous. It's a maple. I think I would consider that to be the front at this point. That's kind of how I'm going to look at it today. When I do repot the tree, I'll reorient it into its new pot with that in mind as the front. But yeah, somewhat right about there for the front. I think I like how it doesn't come straight out of the ground. It's got a, kind of a bend going there. It's pretty vigorous. It doesn't have opposing leaves, so if you take, for example, let's call this trunk a primary and this a primary branch because it comes right off of the trunk. That would make this a secondary branch. And on some species of tree, most of them it seems like, you get 3s. So you would consider this 1, this would be 2, and then a branch coming out of the same spot off of this primary branch would be 3. So you'd consider the trunk to be 1 branch. This primary branch would be 2, and then an opposing branch in the same spot would be 3. So when people say take 3s back to 2, that's what they're talking about. Because if you leave 3s, this swells and becomes bigger than, say, this. And that is what's known as inverse taper. And it's just not really desirable. So my point is that this maple doesn't grow that way. It doesn't grow in opposing branches. Everything's staggered. So that can be really helpful. So I want to take some leaves off of here that are kind of clogging up the interior a little bit. So yeah, this tree's just been kind of existing with me. Not too long after I kind of went crazy and was collecting and buying and collecting. Yeah, for a couple of years now, I've just kind of been, pruning it and letting it grow. So this would be some structural wiring for the first time that the tree's ever had. So I'm going clockwise up the trunk, which means the branch that I'm pairing with, I want to wrap counterclockwise. That gives you the most function out of the wire. So I want to try and make my first move up towards the trunk, but then a pretty good bend down. I'm going to try and get these branches to flatten a little bit and sort of billow and get them laid out so they can get some sunlight. Hopefully that induces and helps some back budding. I'm going to bring this trunk line back to the left. And forward. So I just like to get my branches kind of set out where I want them, or close to where I want them. And then I'll start partially defoliating these leaves. And then some of these I'm just gonna take about 70% of the leaf off. I'd like to be telling the tree with my action that I'm taking here that you had X amount of solar panels to produce food, and it was producing because these are hardened off. And so now you need to take some of that energy and put it into some new buds. Produce those solar panels that'll get you back up to that energy positive. And I also am hoping to spread out the leaf mass by doing that so that maybe I'll get smaller leaves. Because these are big leaves. So the way a tree looks to you and the leaf size and all of that is really part of the consideration when you get your tree. I know this has big leaves. I'm okay with that. You might want to grow a bigger maple. To help balance out that leaf size in comparison to the tree, but I'm choosing to keep this one smaller. I know I've got to do this work. I'm hoping to reduce the leaf size at least by half. This is a technique you can try before just completely taking leaves and branches off to get a better idea of what you want to keep and what can help. See, I think this one can come right off. Now I've heard on Japanese maple that they go around and just cut the tips off. And so if you want to spend a little more time, that's an option. So I don't want to just automatically remove these because it looks like they're clogging up the design, because once I manipulate and move, it may not be clogging up the design. So yeah, this is kind of where I'm at with this tree. I've been playing with this branch. This is the last long branch that I wired. I did shorten the top of the tree. I took a few more leaves off, but mostly I've just been playing with branch placement. So what I'm learning about design is to show age, you want to be asymmetrical. A symmetric shape shows youth, and I'm not looking to show youth in a bonsai container. That's kind of the point of the container, is to help age the tree. It ages the tree faster. When I started this process today, I was thinking that I wanted length out here from this branch as kind of a defining branch that shows my furthest point of asymmetry. But the more I kind of got into the tree, the more I thought I wanted this upper branch to represent that. And so now it's just kind of a question of how I want it to look. Do I want it to be one of those great big deciduous branches that gets weight and starts to get that arc to it, you know? It'll come off the tree, it tries to grow up, but then it gets so big that it starts to droop, and maybe it gets out on the end and it tries to jump back up to the sun again. But that's the cool part about this process and this journey, is you get to do what you want. There's no rule on what you like. If you like the typical look of a bonsai tree, then that's what you can make. If you want something that looks natural, whatever that is to you, then you can make that as well. But whatever you do, it's not permanent unless you kill the tree. The design can always be changed because it's always fluid and growing. I'm going to say I accomplished what I was trying to accomplish. I chose this front. I got this little bit of flare here. I like the way this kicks out of the soil. That's a consideration in the front, is this base. Kind of my widest point right here. This is kind of a point of interest to me. I don't know if it shows up on the camera, but it's got kind of a ridge here. But then in the layout of the branches, what I'd like to see happen is more choices from these points. Now that I've given this a chance to get some good sun and some further branching, maybe to create that kind of billow. And then the other thing that I've got also are some tiny little champion branches in here that'll hopefully be able to fit into this design. So that's a collected deciduous. Existed in a flower bed somewhere. Now it's having a really cush life as a bonsai. Let's check out the quercus. So moving on to the third category of awesome beginner trees. Pretty sure it's a Quercus agrifolia, coast live oak. That's how they build it when I bought it. Now, I mentioned in my first video that this may be a more drought tolerant tree and a heat tolerant tree. Well, heat tolerant for sure because of that thick waxy cuticle on these leaves, but you know, as far as water on these bonsai trees, when you put a tree into a container, you change everything. This is a very drought tolerant tree in the ground. It has the ability to put down a taproot and get deep water. In a bonsai container, it's working off of a shallow root system, and it's going to need to be watered as it needs to be watered. And I'm going to begin with the basics on this. I have one pair of opposing branches here. So I've got 1, 2, 3 branches in the same place. Trunk being considered a branch. Yeah, this is a really nice, healthy one. It's got a bit of new growth. This one hasn't grown as well, and it also has a branch just above it. So that is why I would take this one off. So I like the size of this tree. I like how tiny it is. I see it in a smaller pot, and I'll show you that pot after I finish this work. This is just in a kind of a training pot right now. But one of the actions I do want to take on it today is a partial defoliation, just like on the maple and the ficus. I want to reduce the amount of sugar that these leaves are producing, sugar and starches, and ask the tree to produce more. I want to reduce these by 70%. I'm trying to create more branching, spread out the leaf mass, hopefully get smaller leaves. I think it's possible to completely defoliate this tree. I don't know, I'd kind of like to be a little more conservative. Thought I may want to leave this little branch here at the base of the trunk. It's not going to hurt anything structurally, and it would help. And I think maybe I will. That could be interesting, you know, that could be an interesting branch. So what's so bitching about this process is just how things change when you get the tree on the turntable. You start looking and thinking about the design process and the different aspects of why you would choose what you would choose, and you start visioning what could be and what you have the capacity to create, and it's really just so fun. So I'm looking at this, and I like this base here on this tree. I like the movement. I've got this wound from a previous cut, but I think it'll heal. Well, I know it'll heal eventually. It's already trying to. This branch, I just feel like it really be interesting someday. I'm not gonna reduce these leaves on this one. I'm not going to apply any wire to it. I'm just going to let it grow and see how it does. But I am going to put some wire on these other ones. I want to try and create some space here between the trunk and this branch. Maybe add a little bit of movement here. This section of trunk could stand just a little bit of interest somehow. I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to apply wire and see what happens. Now, this wire looks really aggressive, but I want to be able to put a bend in this trunk and have it hold But this aluminum wire, and follow my original wire right up the trunk line. And I'm just trying to put the slightest little bit of movement into it, lay the branches out so that they can get some sunlight. Maybe I can get some, little bit of back budding. That'd just be lovely. These branches are really short to be trying to put random movement into, but it's part of the fun. And that's the key, is random movement. Not looking for repetition. If you're finding value in this content and you think I've earned it, hit the subscribe button and help the channel. I'd love to be bringing more content like this if it's valuable to anybody. I dig the community. I love the comments. And I appreciate the encouragement. There's lots of tools out there to get better. You just got to jump in. I hope you get the idea. If a guy like me can do this, I'm telling you, you can do this. This is the pot that I'm kind of thinking about using for this tree. I'd love to get this little tree smashed into this pot. I don't see why I shouldn't be able to. Yeah, that's my plan in the springtime, is to get this into this pot. This is too much pot for this little tree. So as always, I really appreciate everyone watching. I hope you found value in this video. Take care.